Okay, so this kind of video is not the type of content that I usually do on this channel. It wasn't scheduled, it wasn't planned, and it's outside of the type of atheistic type of content that I usually cover. So if that's the only reason why you're here, then, this video may be a bit jarring, a bit off the, off the side for you. Regardless, I think it's important enough to put into video form. Therefore, ergo, and thus, here I am. So I want to know, why is it that whenever I get pissed off at a newspaper, it's always the New York frickin' Post? Why? "29 years ago, Public Enemy released their Apocalypse 91 album. And on that album was the slamtastic track, A Letter to the New York Post, which at the time had recently published an article about Public Enemy, some controversy that Flavor Flav was involved with. I don't exactly remember what was said then. I've slept since then, all right? It's been almost 30 years. But Chuck D said in the song, this:
America's oldest continuously published daily piece of bullshit.
But that was 29 years ago. Surely they've improved. Yeah? Not only no, but hell no. The New York Post in 2020 decided it was going to dedicate space to a particular article. Now what, in 2020, could they possibly choose? Pretty much any goddamn thing they wanted. I mean, let's face it, friends. This year has been batshit insane, and every new development is just mind-blowing. It's increasingly difficult to tell what's actual news and what's satire. The line between has been blurred. I mean, we've got these racist domestic terrorists walking around in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, wearing kilts that they bought from an openly LGBT company who has disavowed their actions here. And they're literally pulling up the kilts and showing their bare asses and putting it out on the media. I mean, this is nuts. We've got the current sitting president and his supporters in open sedition against the United States as they try to hold on to power rather than concede to the will of the people. And let us not forget, never forget, a 9/11 event is happening every damn day with people dying from COVID. And the virus is smacking the Statue of Liberty upside the head with plumbing supplies. But, so what could possibly the New York Post dedicate an article space to? A 23-year-old paramedic who's supplementing her income by having an OnlyFans account. That's it. A 23-year-old paramedic supplementing her income. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is the story of our time. The story you, the New York Post, find valuable enough to dedicate space to for an article. This. For the love of humankind, someone please tell me the rationale. Because this old paramedic is at an utter loss to understand what is actually happening here. You're telling me in a city of 8 million people, in the midst of a pandemic, with all of this going on, this is the article that you're going to give space to. Okay. So a 23-year-old paramedic is supplementing her income with an OnlyFans account. Oh my, the scandal. Jeeves, find me some pearls that I might clutch them. Seriously? But okay. In the course of this article, they outed her to her main employer, the EMS service for which she works, and in an attempt to save her primary source of income, she had to trash the OnlyFans. So New York Post, you done fucked this kid, Yeah, she's 23-year-old woman. Okay, but she's old. She's young enough to be my kid, so I'm going with kid here. Deal with it. So you fuck this kid out of her means of support right before Christmas, in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But it's even worse than that, ain't it? It is. And you know it is, New York Post. You know it is. Because you absolutely know. Because this has been your business model. You are no longer...
40 cents in New York City, 50 cents elsewhere.
Are ya? No. You're online. Social media. And there's the comments. And the links. And the retweets. And you've got these brain-dead basehead bimbos and backwoods Billy Bob bastards popping off at the mouth about this poor girl. Feeding into this manufactured scandal for your clicks. Calling her a slut. Saying it's obscene. And all sorts of shit that ain't none of y'all. Much less, it ain't nobody's business. What is wrong with you? Now, I've been a paramedic for more than a minute. So, I'm going to clue y'all into a few things that seem to have escaped you. Whether it's willful ignorance or blissful stupidity, or that you post, and all you motherfuckers dropping hateful comments about this girl on social media, this old, burnt out, overcaffeinated, rage-filled medic is here to correct you. First off, what is obscene is not, I repeat, not this woman making a few bucks by posting photos of her own self on her own time, wearing lingerie, or showing her tits, or any of that. That is not obscene. What's obscene, you nitwits, is that a paramedic in the richest country in the history of the frickin' world cannot make ends meet with one and only one full-time job. That is obscene. The paramedic that works one job is either in a very stable relationship with someone that has a much higher earning potential or has found a way to be comfortable in a lifestyle that requires discounted utilities or is so damn close to the poverty level. That is obscene. What's obscene is the supermajority of paramedics and EMTs in the United States have to work more than one job to make ends meet. What's obscene is that I have to specify that there's a difference between paramedics and EMTs. And if you guys don't know what that difference is, educate yourselves because they ain't the frickin' same. What's obscene is the burnout rate. What's obscene is the suicide rate amongst EMS providers in the United States is 8 times the national average. 8 times! 8 times, you sons of bitches! That's obscene. Some have opined that perhaps she should just pick up extra EMS shifts at her job rather than do this OnlyFans thing. Why doesn't she do that? No, I don't know. I don't know her, okay? But I can take a couple of really educated guesses here. First off, being 23, she ain't been doing this gig all that long. She likely doesn't have the seniority to be able to secure enough extra shifts to make that regular enough of an income for her to count upon. That's likely. Others have asked, why doesn't she get another EMS job? That's what so many other providers do. Okay, let's talk about that a minute, huh? EMS is a demanding job. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and hell, let's put it all out there, ethically. If you've never been in EMS, you ain't got a clue as to what it's like. So I'm going to try to fill you in a little bit. Just a smidge. A skosh. Okay? So many people have this idea in their heads that being a paramedic is just like hanging out in the back of the truck like a taxi bringing people to the hospital. Right? La-di-da, no big deal. The shit ain't like that. Okay? The shit is never like that. This kid, in her EMS job, works 12 hours on a regular shift. 7 shifts per pay period. And in the course of those 12-hour shifts, she's coming into 10 or more patient contacts. And having to do paperwork on each one of them. But we'll set that aside for a minute. You know who's the hardest partying people on this planet? EMTs, paramedics, cops, firefighters, and emergency room nurses. You know why? I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Because to do those jobs, it takes a person of a certain mental type. The type which can focus down into the moment. This precise moment. And how much can be done in that moment. Because in that moment, decisions must be made. Decisions which will affect the outcome of someone's life. This is how we do what it is that we do. That's how we do it. Because we're able to focus down in on that. In the shades of all sorts of chaos going around us. We can focus on the smallest of details. The subtle changes in a patient's skin tone. The way someone's breathing might change. The cessation of a heartbeat. But you know what also makes one focus on that precise moment? You know what else does? Trauma. Emotional trauma. Have you ever been through an emotionally traumatizing event? A divorce, maybe? Or in a car accident? Maybe, the victim of a violent crime? Most people who experience such things can remember bits and pieces in exquisite detail. The way she looked at you when she told you she doesn't want you anymore. Where the windshield wipers were when the car T-boned you. The smell of that guy's breath as he put the Glock to your head. Other things around that event seem to be a blur, this kind of jumbled mess, where you can't recall days and misremember the order of things. If you've experienced that, believe me, you have my sympathies. Truly, you do. Because that type of thing, it messes with you. It messes with you hard. And if so, congratulations. Now you know what I'm talking about. Okay? So how did you handle yourself after that event? If you said that you were depressed, maybe had suicidal thoughts, trust me, it's very common. You're far from alone. If you said any type of substance abuse, maybe you started smoking again, maybe you were drinking a little heavier than you ought, maybe you was smoking a little pot to help yourself get to sleep at night because your brain wouldn't shut off. Trust me, you are not the only one who's done that. If you withdrew a little bit from society, from your friends, because you felt like your depression, your sadness, your life being fucked up was going to bring all of them down, and you didn't want your pain going on to them, because if it did, it would make you feel worse. You're wrong. First off, you're wrong there. But that reaction is totally understandable. If you instead found that maybe it kind of woke something in you, this sort of hypersexuality for a time. You break up and then it was like I was, banging anybody I could for about 3 weeks. That is a lot more common than most people seem to admit. It almost seems like fucking survive is like an unspoken mantra in a kind of way of victims of such trauma. Now, do any of those things describe people working in the emergency medical services field, or cops, or firefighters, or emergency room staff? You're goddamn right they do. Right down to the letter. Alcoholism is rampant in those fields. Drug use, obsessive behavior, aside from these, the hypersexuality. And I'm not just talking about an increased libido. I'm talking the whole goddamn thing is hypersexualized. Now, dig this. That medic, she's 23. She and her partner are not going to be able to lift a 500-pound patient up who fell in the bathroom and busted their ankle. They're going to need help. So they call the fire department for lift assistance, and fire always shows up with more guys than they need. So whoever else is helping her lift, she has to be there. She's the lead provider. She's the paramedic, right? She's the lead provider. That is her patient. That's always going to be her patient. Even if fire comes, helps her lift, she's going to be lifted. And being as fire has too many guys around, standing around with their mustaches and their bunker gear, invariably, there's going to be one of them that makes a comment about her ass as she's lifted. It's just going to happen. And that isn't on her. That's on him. That's him expressing hypersexuality from the trauma associated with firefighting. It's just there. That's how it is. She's doing compressions, doing CPR. Brings a patient into the hospital doing CPR. All right? Resident physician's going to take a look. Yeah, baby, keep pumping it. All right? It's subtle, but it's there. We all know it's there. You all hear that. You all hear that. And don't tell me that never happens, because it does. On like a daily freaking basis. I've seen it. Happens all the freaking time. So why is that? Because that's their hypersexuality coming through from the emotional trauma of their job. Back down to her. She's intubating. Guy collapses, needs an airway. Cop's standing there. She's putting a tube in this guy's throat. Cop's making a blowjob joke. Again, same thing. Her friends, the co-workers with whom she's cool, the way they interact with each other in the station when management ain't around, and even when management is around, to be completely honest, sometimes, that would be called sexual harassment in just about every other industry in the country, except for maybe the kitchen of a restaurant. Maybe. So those of us who ain't habitual drunks or getting high every chance we can and still keep our jobs tend to fuck a lot. That's just the kind of people EMS attracts, for one. And I hope I've made clear by now, it is also a symptom of emotional trauma. So you have this young provider in a hypersexualized environment, because every last person around her is freaking traumatized, in the middle of this freaking pandemic, and money's tight. She doesn't want to burn herself out by getting another EMS gig, because even at her young age, she's already seen people burn themselves out. Working too many jobs, working all the time. It gets in your head. It changes you. It damages you. It makes it very, very difficult to maintain a relationship that you can't be in because your head's always in the job. So when they're working to try to support their families, and they're working, and they have 2, 3, 4 EMS jobs, they wind up losing their families and losing the kids and losing everything that's worth working for, because they're not able to take a break. The people that have been doing it a while, they all have part-time gigs too, little side hustles. Of course they do, because the pay is shit. But the ones with longevity, their side hustles tend to have something unrelated, completely unrelated to EMS. Those type of side hustles bring in a little bit of extra income, and it has absolutely nothing to do with emergency services. Those are the people that can stay around for longer. Or they teach, right? Teaching, you feel like you're giving back. And yeah, you're probably teaching EMS. You're probably teaching an EMT class or a paramedic class. Okay? But at 23 years old, she ain't been doing this long enough to be teaching. So what options does she have? She has other EMS jobs, or what? Outside of EMS. What? I don't know. Waitressing? Because that's going to be super lucrative when we're in the middle of a pandemic and lockdowns going on, right? So this OnlyFans phenomenon comes along and people are making money at it. Now, during the course of her work week, she's got 48 hours of people trying to stick their cocks in her. So she figures, hey, I may as well monetize that. And hell, it's pictures. It's videos. People want to pay her monthly to see her in her underwear. Why not? She's only going to be young once, right? It's not like she's selling blowjobs on the corner for crap. It helps with the rent, which in New York is freaking obscene, because there's 8 million other motherfuckers trying to live in the same place. There's a lot of competition. She ain't burning herself out by getting another EMS gig, so she'll be able to help the people of her community longer. And the New York freaking Post decides this is scandalous enough for their rag to print and throw this girl's picture and all that up online and have a bunch of people who don't know shit about shit popping off at the mouth. That, my friends, is obscene. So congratulations, New York Post. You're still a piece of shit. This freaking job is hard enough. And when you're going to take it upon yourself to shame people for having a side hustle, which ain't hurting nobody, and take the paramedic off the street for no good goddamn reason at all, you're demonstrating you ain't worth the paper you're printed on. And that's newspulp. That shit's cheap. So my friends, my foes, in closing, I'm going to leave you one more line from Chuck D. His own self, his own words about the New York Post.
Get your shit correct.
Take it easy.